All right, here we are, season 2, episode number 6, entitled Onyx, which takes place on the world of Onyx. From the books, Onyx was a place where the Spartan threes were trained, somewhat in secret still. They were child soldiers and orphans who were basically disrupted from Reach, who wanted to get revenge on the UNSC. And in somewhat similar fashion, although the show continues to take its own creative liberties, here you see one of the survivors of Reach, there, right, with other Spartan threes who are basically going to be treated as throwaways. And we learn about that in a couple different instances. Before I get too much into the episode, as with all of my other Halo episode reviews, this will contain spoilers. Generally, I like this episode. I thought it pushed the narrative. I definitely see a lot of blending continuing from some of the source material, kind of their own unique spin on what's going on in this silver universe, and pulling stuff from future Halos into this particular episode. And I'm fine with that. I could talk ad nauseum, and I'll probably do a video at some point later, kind of wrapping up my thoughts on the first 2 seasons as a whole. But as this season goes, and this episode in particular, it is running somewhat of a parallel course to the original lore and the canon that we all know and love. I think the whole point of this episode revolved around the idea of faith. You have blind faith in the Spartan program and all these posters and propaganda tools of the Master Chief. You have Kai and that one-on-one kind of showdown towards the middle of the episode with Chief and kind of her faith in what he says to be true or not. And you even see the Arbiter's faith in McKee. So there's this kind of central theme running throughout this episode of what do you believe in and how far are you willing to go to kind of, defend that belief or to make it a reality. And I like that they did that with this episode. And I thought that thematically it worked very well as you had these parallel stories that all kind of tied into the same concept. I guess you could even argue, there was some other, obviously a little on the nose there, but our good friend Kwan and her faith, obviously, and what's going on led them right to Halsey's daughter and the experiment that they're doing over there, right? So we'll see where that goes. I'm pretty sure we can all guess what's going to happen, but we'll wait. I don't try to make rumor or speculation a reality on this channel, at least. We'll see where that goes, but I think we all know that that's going to be one of the tickets, at least humanity's side, into finding Halo. And as an aside, the one thing that did annoy me the most about this episode was, and really this whole season and honestly series as a whole, is how everybody just throws that word around like they know what it means. Like, oh, we're going to go find Halo. And it's like the original idea was nobody knew what the hell it was. They didn't even, Chief was about to activate it, right? And he was about to put the key in. And Cortana's like, hey, wait, stop. And he's like, oh, why? And she's like, it'll kill everything. So it's kind of odd to me that everybody seems to just have this common knowledge of this mythical thing called Halo, which is going to win a war. And nobody seems to understand why. But I could understand in the idea of this universe, they got to keep some stuff rolling, I guess. So that's kind of the nod that we have to take to kind of the unrealistic thought that there's some super weapon that will cure, the world's problems, right? We did find out that Reach was a propaganda tool to willingly recruit Spartan 3s. I believe this was Ackerson's plan all along, letting Reach fall, making sure there were no survivors, and then creating this narrative and this idea of this martyr that would have been Master Chief, the guy who died, and join him in his fight and finish what he started. And propaganda is a very, very powerful form of recruitment. Obviously, so is martyrdom. I can't even begin to tell you the number of people I know here in the United States that joined the military after 9/11. So you absolutely do see people who rally to a cause. And if the simulations that Cortana was running saying, there's no chance we're going to win, the enemy is too strong, too powerful, too violent, well, the long play would be, even though it's kind of messed up to say, the long play would be to sacrifice, Reach in exchange for millions of Spartans, as they said, who would willingly join this time, not going through this secret shadow program. But that's how you're going to get people to recruit. Now, in the source material, that doesn't really happen until Spartan 4 program. Again, as I said, there's a lot of creative liberties taken here, but that's fine. But the idea is that you have this thing that everybody can unite against. Look what the Covenant did to Reach. Well, what are you going to do about it? And it turns out ultimately that Parangoski, who I'm still kind of struggling to see what her role is in this. Clearly, she is the kind of conductor of chaos and the master of everything. She wasn't really outed the way she presented herself to John 2 episodes ago. Instead, she's kind of at the center of it, and she's been working with the Cortana project, so to speak. And Cortana is kind of like a shadow puppet for her. So ultimately, it's still about her power, even though Ackerson's quote-unquote in charge. Really, Parangoski is still running the strings when it comes to some of the major stuff. The true mission of Cortana, unknown to even Ackerson, is to ultimately get Halo. Parangoski seems to know this. She knows that she has to work with the enemy and manipulate them, and that goes back to the entire idea of what ONI even is, right? The Office of Naval Intelligence and their whole mission of, whatever it takes to win, right? And I think Parangoski knows ultimately that she has to betray and burn a lot of people for the greater good of humanity, and that's, as she said at one point in one of the scenes, she said to Ackerson, this is the price you pay for Spartan 3s. So I'm still not entirely quite sure where that's going to go. It seems like Cortana is starting to become self-aware and understand that she is used as a puppet as well. I suspect because of how the show has been written and going, she'll obviously betray Parangoski at some point, and people will rally to John because he is the most kind of pure-hearted character on the show. Remains to be seen. So I think that was kind of the major plot point there. Interestingly enough, there was a couple moments where John willingly takes out UNSC. I'm pretty sure he killed at least a few of them. He definitely shot a bunch of them up. I was kind of surprised how quickly he's willing to kind of turn on kind of innocent civilians who aren't really involved in this. And that does bother me slightly as his character, as this super soldier, following orders because you have to. It's kind of surprising to me that he would be going to such great lengths to get his mission completed, even at kind of the detriment of some of his fellow soldiers who are just doing their job. They're just security guards or sentries, just kind of, happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time on the wrong end of a Spartan 2 super punch, or, being thrown across a room or whipped them back by their neck using a big chain or something like that. So the violence there, I kind of wish John would save it for the Covenant, and I think they had to make John's kind of invasion into Onyx a realistic kind of thing. So I guess I understand that there would be some violence there. I much preferred the end part of the episode where Cortana was kind of manipulating everything, where John just walked through seamlessly. Cortana was opening and closing doors to protect him. I would have much rather had that. I don't necessarily think I need to see the world's greatest Spartan take out his own guys, but okay. I mean, like, we did it in the video game, didn't we? Don't tell me you didn't kill those Marines with those rocket launchers. I know you did. And then we saw that awesome fight scene with John versus Kai. There, again, you can see just how much more powerful a Spartan is in their Mjolnir armor, and how Kai just absolutely destroyed Chief. I mean, really holding her punches, but soundly destroyed him without as much as a sweat. Again, I talked at the beginning of the episode about the idea of faith, but she does ultimately back off at the end. When it really comes down to it, she does kind of back off. It's nice to see some Spartan armor, which I honestly thought I wouldn't say in a Halo episode, but we've kind of got ourselves in the situation where I don't think we're going to see John suit up until probably the very end of the episode, or very the end of the season. So for the fans who are absolutely livid that there's no Chief armor, well, that is going to continue just a little bit longer. But again, you see when he puts it on, he is an unstoppable force. And you have to kind of create some sort of tension for the character. If he was walking around in his Mjolnir armor, he would destroy everything and he would be infinite power. And that honestly wouldn't make a good show. I was telling my wife before I started recording this that the episode that always get me, or the book, the first Halo book, First Strike, how bad it was, where they just basically narrated the entire game scene for scene, was insanely boring because Chief never loses. He never runs out of ammo. He's a super soldier. He never gets tired. I know that a lot of people want that in a TV show, but I think it wouldn't be nearly as exciting, and the tension wouldn't be there as what they're doing here. So those are just my 2 cents on that. We did see the beginning of what could potentially be the Great Schism. You saw the Covenant fighting against each other for the first time. The Arbiter blindly defending Makee because he believes in her, even though she's having a hard time activating the artifact and that key to try to find Halo. You see him kind of turning his back on his own team, pulling out his energy sword and going to war. And you saw other arbiters, not other arbiters, you saw other Covenant loyal to him fighting for his cause. And that's really the kind of the crux of what the Great Schism was. It's discussed kind of tangentially in Halo 2, a lot more so in the media, but the idea that the Covenant's unified mission in this holy war isn't exactly what they thought it was. That run any parallels to what's going on in the UNSC? So I don't know how full-fledged this whole civil war is going to go, or if it was just contained to the Arbiter ship, but I thought that was kind of interesting. We also saw the Spartan 3's training for Operation, I believe they called it Javelin in this. In the books, it's referred to as Operation Torpedo, but it was the major suicide mission, and one of the main reasons the Spartan 3s were created is these soldiers who could be disposed of. They were 100% expendable. The mortality rate was like through the roof. I think like 3 of them lived. Spartan 3s, at least the child soldier variants, were definitely not meant to survive. They were just thrown at the enemy. And that was very clear to me when they completed the simulation. And instead of them fighting their way out, the simulation essentially didn't know what to do, and all the Covenant just vanished and they walked off the ship. Kai's starting to put the pieces together. She said something to the effect of the only thing harder than fighting on a Covenant ship is fighting off a Covenant ship. So the idea of the UNSC, fighting as like a swarm of bees, these Spartan 3s that are just floating in from all different directions and, working as this kind of parasite, almost climbing and weaving their way through each other in an effort to reach Covenant ships to destroy them basically manually by putting in these spikes, which are just basically very directed viruses that instantly overload cooling systems and cause the ship to internally, explode. Taking out a supercarrier, for example, with like a platoon of Spartans is a much better tactic than the UNSC going toe-to-toe. They can't. They don't talk about it here in this show, but just a little background context. The only reason the UNSC Infinity has any chance of fighting against some of these Covenant ships is because it's been modified with a lot of Promethean technology and Forerunner technology that makes it so viably strong. But one-on-one, the UNSC would not win in a large confrontation of military power with vessels. Obviously, the Spartans program changes that because they're such capable hand-to-hand fighters. So the idea of kind of doubling down on their strength, which is these small, nimble units, having them send into basically suicide missions to sacrifice themselves to blow up major strategic installations is exactly what the whole reason I think Reach was intentionally kind of given up and not fought for, was to get more meat through the grinder, to get these guys out there. You can even tell by their armor, which they don't really talk too much about here, but it's very clear that it's like training armor. It's definitely not nearly as robust as a Spartan 2's armor, for example. It's significantly cheaper, and that's meant to be disposable. You put it on one time, you go out to war, and you're not coming back. So the big thing I think they're leading towards is Operation Torpedo, at least this universe's variant of it, where I think you're going to see a lot of suicide missions by the UNSC reaching desperations to take out key military installations by the Covenant. So like I said, wrapping up this review, definitely a lot of things are pulling from the expanded universe. Definitely a lot of concepts and themes that they're sprinkling into the show and still putting their own unique flair on things. I'm still engrossed by the show. Absolutely adore it for what it is. I know it's not faithful to the material, and I'm fine with that. I'm still having a great time enjoying it. But that'll wrap up my review of episode number 6. And I'll be back again next week. We only got 2 more, and then I'll do kind of a final thought on the whole season. So that's all for now. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.